All right, diving deep today. And you guys wanted the full picture on Ted Bundy,
Oh,
one
yeah.
of America's most notorious serial killers.
Absolutely.
So we've got analysis, background, psychology, the whole works here.
Yeah.
We're going to be trying to uncover what made Bundy tick and why his case still haunts us to this day.
It's going to be good.
Buckle up, though, because it gets pretty intense.
Oh, for sure. With Bundy, you can't just slap on a monster label and just call it a day.
Right.
He really forces us, I think, to confront the fact that evil can hide in plain sight disguised as normalcy.
Yeah.
And that's a truly unsettling thought.
It is, and it's a big part of what makes this deep dive so compelling.
For sure.
So let's start with the man himself.
Okay.
Our sources paint a fascinating and honestly a pretty bizarre picture of his early life.
Yeah. It's, right from the start, his birth in 1946 as Theodore Robert Bundy is surrounded by questions about his biological father. Then you add to that the fact that he was raised believing his mother was his sister.
Oh, wow.
It was a really kind of twisted attempt to avoid the stigma of illegitimacy back then.
Right.
And, that kind of foundation can seriously warp someone's sense of self and family.
Yeah, it's like a real-life psychological thriller,
Absolutely.
You really have to wonder how that early deception affected his development.
Right.
And then on top of that, there are even reports of antisocial behavior in Bundy's youth.
Yeah, and those early signs, however subtle, they can be red flags.
Oh, yeah?
It's like cracks in the foundation that later on lead to a total collapse.
Okay, so we've got this potentially volatile childhood.
Right.
Then fast forward, and Bundy's confirmed victim count hits at least 30.
Yeah.
And many experts believe it was much higher.
Much, much higher.
It's just staggering.
And you know what else is mind-blowing? The sheer geographical scope of his crimes.
Oh, yeah?
He operated across multiple states: Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Florida.
Wow.
This wasn't just like a localized spree.
Yeah.
Bundy was a predator on the move.
It's chilling to think, he was just moving freely, almost blending into the background, all while leaving a trail of devastation behind him.
It really is.
Yeah. And from what I'm reading here, it's terrifying how calculated everything was.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's dive into that. Because this blueprint it's something else.
Yeah, first, his victim selection. He targeted young, attractive white women, often college students, so clearly preying on a specific demographic.
So he had a type.
He did.
Which suggests a level of premeditation, not just random acts of violence.
Exactly. And then there were the lure tactics.
Right.
Bundy was a master manipulator.
Yeah.
He would often feign injury using crutches or a sling to appear vulnerable and evoke sympathy.
Oh,
He weaponized people's good nature.
Wow. That's sinister.
It is.
So he was exploiting that instinct to help someone in need.
Yeah.
And this often led his victims right to his car.
Uh-huh.
His infamous beige Volkswagen Beetle.
Exactly. And he even removed the passenger seat, presumably to make it easier to abduct and transport his victims.
So every detail was carefully considered and executed.
Every detail.
So he gets them in the car, and then what?
Well,
The sources don't shy away from the brutality of his methods.
No, they don't. We're talking blunt force trauma, strangulation, and in some cases, post-mortem mutilation.
Oh, my God.
This wasn't just about killing. There was a deeply disturbing, sadistic element at play.
And he often disposed of the bodies in remote wooded areas,
Yeah.
making them harder to find. But the sources also mentioned that he sometimes revisited the crime scenes.
Yeah, and this points to another disturbing aspect of his crimes, necrophilia, which is a sexual attraction to corpses.
Right.
And that adds a whole other layer of depravity to his already horrific acts.
It's important for our listeners to understand that we're not glorifying these details.
No, of course not.
We're presenting the facts as they are to provide a complete understanding of who Bundy was and what he did.
Right. It's essential to understand the full scope of his crimes to grasp their impact on society.
Right. And some of his cases are particularly chilling because of their audacity and the specific details surrounding them.
Yeah, let's take Linda Ann Healy, for example.
Good.
One of his early victims abducted from her basement room in Seattle in 1974.
Yeah.
It shows how easily he infiltrated seemingly safe spaces, striking when least expected.
Right. And then you have the Lake Sammamish murders, also in 1974.
Right.
Bundy abducted two women, Janice Ott and Denise Nasland, from a crowded park on the same day.
Wow.
The brazenness is astounding.
It almost seems like he was getting bolder, more confident with each crime.
There's definitely a sense of escalation.
Yeah.
And then you have the Chi Omega sorority attack in 1978.
Right.
Bundy broke into a Florida State University sorority house, killing 2 women and severely injuring 2 others.
Oh my gosh.
It was a frenzied, almost uncontrolled attack, showcasing a new level of brutality.
And sadly, there's Kimberly Leach, his final confirmed victim,
Yeah.
a 12-year-old girl abducted and murdered in Florida in 1978. Yeah, the Kimberly Leach case is particularly horrifying because it reveals a widening of his victim profile.
Right.
It was no longer just college-aged women, it was a child, highlighting the truly predatory nature of his crimes.
It's like a descent into an abyss, each crime more disturbing than the last.
It really is.
But as you know, Bundy's story doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't.
He had a whole legal battle ahead of him, complete with daring escapes and a trial that became a media spectacle.
Oh, yeah. His journey through the justice system is a fascinating and disturbing tale in itself.
And that's what we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive.
You know, it's almost ironic that Bundy's first arrest in 1975 was for something as seemingly minor as possession of burglary tools.
Right. Like, talk about an understatement.
Seriously, especially considering the horrifying acts he was already committing.
It's crazy how that small offense would set in motion the unraveling of his entire web of crimes.
It really does, underscore the importance of those small details in criminal investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the tiniest clues can lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
But let's not forget, Bundy was a master manipulator.
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't going down without a fight.
Oh, no.
He managed to escape custody, not once, but twice.
I know.
First, by jumping out of a library window in Colorado.
Yeah, that escape was audacious, to say the least.
And then his second escape, where he meticulously sawed through his cell ceiling.
Oh my gosh.
Speaks to his desperation and cunning.
For sure.
This was a man facing multiple murder charges.
Right.
And was willing to risk everything to evade justice.
It's like something out of a Hollywood thriller.
I know, right?
And then when he was finally recaptured, his trial became a complete media frenzy.
Oh, absolutely. The Bundy trial was a spectacle, unlike anything we'd seen before.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he chose to represent himself,
Yeah.
using his knowledge of the law to cross-examine witnesses and manipulate the proceedings.
It was like he was putting on a performance,
Yeah.
relishing the spotlight.
It's mind-boggling that he was even allowed to represent himself in such a high-profile case.
Yeah, it does raise questions about the legal system
Right.
and how someone like Bundy could exploit its loopholes.
Yeah.
I mean, his charisma and intelligence allowed him to manipulate the system for a time.
Right.
But thankfully, the evidence against him was too overwhelming to ignore.
No amount of charm could erase the evidence of his horrific crimes.
Nope.
And speaking of charm, that brings us to one of the most fascinating and disturbing aspects of Bundy's story, his psychological profile.
Yeah, Bundy's psychology is a complex puzzle.
It is.
It's a case study in narcissism, psychopathy, and the chilling ability to deceive.
Okay, let's break this down.
Okay.
What were the key personality traits that defined Bundy?
Well, first, the narcissism is undeniable.
Uh-huh.
Bundy had this grandiose sense of self-importance, believing he was more intelligent than everyone else and could outsmart the authorities.
Yeah.
It's a common trait in many criminal profiles.
Right.
But with Bundy, it was especially pronounced.
And then there's the psychopathy, which is a whole other level of unsettling.
Exactly. Psychopathy is characterized by this lack of empathy, remorse, and guilt. The very things that make us human and prevent us from harming others.
Right.
Bundy simply didn't possess these qualities.
Yeah.
He was driven by this cold, calculated self-interest.
It's hard to even fathom how someone can function without those basic human emotions.
I know.
What's even more disturbing is that he was able to hide his dark side behind a mask of normalcy.
That's the terrifying part.
It is.
Bundy was a master manipulator,
Yeah.
adept at deception.
Right.
He presented himself as charming, intelligent, even likable, all while harboring these horrific desires.
It's a stark reminder that appearances can be incredibly deceiving.
It really is.
Our sources even mentioned that he was a law student
I know, right?
and had aspirations of becoming a politician.
Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I know, right?
It's a classic example of what psychologists call the mask of sanity. Bundy was able to seamlessly blend into society,
Yeah.
making his crimes all the more shocking when they were finally revealed.
So we have the narcissism, the psychopathy, the deception,
Right.
but we can't overlook the sexual deviance that played a significant role in his crimes.
Yeah, the sources are very clear about Bundy's paraphilias,
Yeah.
especially his necrophilia.
Right. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
paraphilia refers to atypical sexual interests.
Right.
And necrophilia specifically is a sexual attraction to corpses.
Exactly.
For Bundy, his crimes weren't just about power and control.
Right.
There was this distinct and disturbing sexual component intertwined with violence and death.
Absolutely. His case really forces us to confront this very dark side of human nature.
It does.
And while Bundy's case is unique in many ways,
Right.
it also exposes vulnerabilities in our society that predators can exploit.
Absolutely. Bundy's crimes highlighted the need for advancements in law enforcement techniques.
Profile.
Right. And increased cooperation between agencies. But it also really shattered our sense of security, reminding us that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. Bundy's image became almost synonymous with evil, a cultural icon of the charming psychopath.
Right.
His story continues to fascinate and horrify, inspiring countless books, films, and documentaries.
And speaking of which, the Netflix series Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, is a chilling glimpse into Bundy's mind.
Oh, yeah.
Through his own words, it's a really valuable resource for understanding his manipulation tactics.
Right.
And how he crafted his narrative.
It is, but it's important to view such material with a critical eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Remembering that Bundy was a master manipulator, even in his own recounting of events.
That's an excellent point.
Thanks.
So we've covered Bundy's early life, his crimes, his capture, his trial, his psychological profile.
Right.
And his impact on society. But there's still one chapter left. The final act leading up to his execution.
Yeah, the final chapter of Ted Bundy's life is this mix of confession,
Right.
failed manipulations, and perhaps a glimmer of human vulnerability beneath the mask of the monster.
This is where we see Bundy confronting his mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fascinating, albeit unsettling, part of the story.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. It's like after years of denial, Bundy confessed to over 30 murders shortly before his execution.
Wow.
Some believe it was genuine remorse, while others see it as like a final attempt to manipulate the system and delay his fate.
It's so difficult to know for sure what motivated that confession.
It is.
I mean, was it a change of heart, or was it just another calculated move in his twisted game?
Right. That's a question that continues to intrigue us. We'll never truly know what was going through Bundy's mind in those final moments.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, he didn't go down quietly.
No.
He tried to bargain for more time by offering additional information.
Oh, wow.
Demonstrating that his manipulative tactics persisted until the very end.
So it seems like he couldn't relinquish control, even when facing death.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But what about his final words?
Well, his final words were actually quite surprising. Instead of arrogance or defiance, he reportedly expressed fear of death.
Really?
It was like this glimpse of vulnerability, a stark contrast to his previous persona.
It makes you wonder if beneath all the manipulation and the psychopathy, there was a flicker of humanity or realization of the gravity of what he had done.
It's certainly possible. But in the end, Ted Bundy remains this enigma. A chilling reminder of the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary people. His case continues to challenge our understanding of evil, underscoring that appearances can be deceiving and monsters can wear charming masks.
It's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
And brings us to a crucial question for our listeners to ponder. Could someone like Ted Bundy exist today? And if so, how would we recognize them?
It's a chilling question, but one we need to consider. The truth is, individuals with similar psychological profiles to Bundy's are out there. The key is awareness. Educating ourselves about the signs of manipulation and predatory behavior.
Right. So much of Bundy's success as a predator came from his ability to blend in, to appear charming and harmless. It was the ultimate betrayal of trust.
Precisely. That's why we need to look beyond surface appearances. We need to pay attention to inconsistencies in behavior, to those red flags that might signal something darker lurking beneath the surface.
And this deep dive has really underscored the importance of critical thinking.
Right.
Of not just accepting things at face value. It's so easy to be swayed by charisma. But we have to remember, appearances can be deceiving.
Absolutely. It's not about living in constant fear or suspicion. It's about being informed and aware of potential dangers.
Oh.
Trusting our instincts is key. If something feels off, it probably is.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult lesson, but a necessary one. Ted Bundy's case serves as that stark reminder that evil can wear many masks. It's up to each of us to be vigilant, to protect ourselves and those around us.
I couldn't agree more. This journey into Bundy's life and crimes has been a descent into the darkest parts of human nature, but it also highlights the strength of the human spirit, our capacity for compassion and justice. Even when facing unspeakable evil, we must hold on to our shared humanity.
That's a powerful message. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the chilling world of Ted Bundy. It's been a heavy topic, but hopefully one that leaves you with a deeper understanding of criminal psychology and the importance of staying informed.
I hope our listeners walk away from this with a sense of empowerment. Knowledge is power. The more we understand the darker aspects of human behavior, the better equipped we are to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Well said.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.